Thank you so much. Hey everyone, good morning, and thank you for being here at 10 o'clock. I know on Saturday it's hard, right? Everyone loves to sleep on Saturday. Yeah, me too. Okay, so I'm really grateful to be here on this day. So can we switch to, yeah. I mean, this is a really special day for me because I was on stage 5 years ago for the first time in my life in one of the Angular conferences in Sri Lanka. So that's how it started. So it's been 5 years and it feels like I'm doing it forever. Yeah. So I was just telling this to my friend, like it's been 5 years. I'm speaking at conference, and she was like, "Oh, stop lying. I mean, I have seen you speaking like since eternity." I was like, okay, I'm doing too much probably. Cool. So when I was supposed to give talk at this conference, I was looking at like giving a very special talk because I wanted to bring something for experienced developers where they just don't learn about just NX or just Angular. So I spoke to my manager and said, hey, why don't we do a talk, or why don't I give a talk about like how we build software, because our code base is crazy. I mean, we have more than 400 developers contributing to the mono-repo. It's a very large-scale mono-repo. And my manager was like, yeah, why? Let's do that. Why you're even asking this? So I prepared this talk, and I hope you get something out of it, even though you don't use NX or you don't use Angular. Probably you will learn something. So that's the whole idea. So let's go ahead and get started. So how to ship updates to 40 plus apps every week. So I'll start with like how our application looks like. Because of course you have to understand like why we are doing this, like why we are shipping 40 plus apps, right? Who needs to do this? So this is our actual app. This is a screenshot from our actual app. So if you see this navbar, this navbar is actually, one navbar is one app. So it's owned by different teams. So of course we have almost 40, and then even in this right-hand side, or sorry, left-hand side menu, which you see, where you have something called trend, views, they are an app as well. So it's like app within an app, and there are like many. Even this another view where you can see attribute list, KPI charts. So this is another app. So it's like a widget framework. So you can actually go and create multiple widgets of multiple types. It's fully customizable. It's mostly used for process management. That's what we do. So at Celonis, we try to help organization speed up or figure out where they are losing money, and we give them like insights using dashboards. They can also automate the processes, like they can create some workflows where you can figure out, okay, this is, I'm paying too early to my vendors, and then if I keep this money for next 15 days, I will probably make another 100K, or I'll save another 100K. So that's what we do. And this is how it started. Like, but why we ended up here, like why we are shipping 40 plus apps? This is not something which we have been doing forever. But our business, of course, works since 2011. So Celonis started in 2011, and then we started adding more apps, and then we ended up with some problems. So what was the problem statement that why we needed to do this? So let's see. So before module federation or micro frontend came into picture, or even NX came into existence, this is what we used to do. I think this is a solution for, or this is a solution probably many legacy apps still do. So what we used to do is we had multiple apps, okay? And we had a separate app which used to render our navbar, and then we used to actually just use via URL routing, we used to actually load different apps, which was just an compiled JavaScript. And we used to do it using Java. And probably many people are still doing that because they don't have time to migrate to a good solution like micro frontends or module federation. And they had their own repository. So every app with their own repository, with front end, back end, and we were not enjoying this because now we had to actually build and deploy each and every app, right? So it's just think about doing this stuff where you have an app, you have to build the code on using GitHub Action, you have to push the build to an artifact or database, because we used to make an API call to load all the app, right? So all the JS files. And we were doing it like X times, like If there were not 40 apps at that time, but at least we had close to 20, 25 apps. And we were doing this same workflow 25 times. So we were paying like GitHub a shitload of money. We were making them rich. So, and then we also started facing issues because, if you are working with multiple teams, more than 10 teams, there will be always one team which will say, hey, we don't have capacity to upgrade to new design system, or we don't have capacity to upgrade to new Angular version. So we started doing this. We started managing multiple versions of our design system, multiple versions of our shared libraries, and it was a pain. It was pain for the design system team as well as the team who used to manage all the reusable libraries. So but this is what, actually, this is very funny because this is a real use case this really happened in our application. So we have multiple apps, right? And there was an instance where our users can see two different design systems on two different apps, but eventually it's the same app. So they're just seeing, okay, this is old design system, and when they go to the next app or switch to new app, they are seeing different design system. And they're like, why? Why should I have this experience? And this is not good for business, right? I mean, if you're making a lot of money and you have big customers like Google, Microsoft, it doesn't feel like doing this in the right way, right? So, of course, we went through this. So, and then there are many other issues. So we had one issue is, of course, when users or our users switch between multiple apps, there is a page reload. And they're like thinking, why I'm doing this 2000 shit? Because this is something which we used to do it in early 2000, right? Where you go to a website and it reloads and it takes seconds to go to a new page. And that was still an issue. We had huge bundle size. I'm literally saying huge because it was. So because there was no rechecking, no lazy loading. And then upgrading to new Angular version, that was too much effort, right? Just think about doing the same thing 25 times. And now it's 40. So, of course, if we never migrated to NX, I mean, we have been doing this for 40 different apps. And as I just mentioned on the previous slide, so maintaining multiple versions of Emotion, which was our design system, and our shared libraries, it was becoming difficult because there were teams where they had no front-end engineers. They just had like a bunch of back-end engineers. It's not bad, but of course, like you need a skill, right? You need a skill to upgrade to a new Angular version or any JavaScript probably dependency you are using. And as I said, like with GitHub Actions, we were building the same project like 25 times. So this became a problem with the release because now for release, we have to synchronize 25 apps. Just think about doing it manually because, of course, we can publish, but we have to go ahead and synchronize all these releases at the same time, which means we had a little bit of downtime as well. So, of course, we knew that this is not going to work. So we started using NX. So close to 2.5 years before I joined Celonis, there was already a plan that we want to move to NX because we have been through these issues, the problem statement which I just went through. So we said, okay, let's use NX. But what is NX? So it's a build tool with mono-repo support. So many people think it's a mono-repo tool, which is not true. It's just a build tool. And it gives you flexibility that you can actually have mono-repo as well. Cool. And what NX basically does is, okay, it actually gives you build cache for all your tasks. Now, what do you mean by tasks? So you have like tasks like build, test, end-to-end, test, and those are your tasks. So whatever you run after writing your code becomes your task. It can be anything. So it gives you cache. It's framework and technology agnostic, so you necessarily don't have to use Angular or don't have to use React. I mean, it's available for Vue as well. And you can build your own. So let's say it's a plugin based. So you can bring your own framework. Let's say if you built any homegrown framework, which people generally do, you can also bring it as part of NX. So it's very flexible. So as I said, it provides out-of-the-box support for major frameworks like React, Angular, and Vue. But it's not limited. You can use Solid, you can use Svelte, and even mobile for mobile development. It supports micro frontend and module federation, and it also supports backend technologies like Spring and .NET Core. So you can use all of them. Let's talk about our code base. So this is like 2 million lines of code. This is what we do. We manage 2 million of lines of code. We have more than 40 plus apps, more than 40 teams, and we have now close to 200 projects. When I say apps and projects, it's because, of course, there are libraries. Right? So we have 40 plus apps, but there are like close to 140 different libraries which we have shared across. So this is the current state. This is where we are right now. And with module federation, we started like fixing the issues which we just saw on the previous slide where we talked about why we are here, right? What was the problem statement? So with module federation, what we did is we have shell app, and it can load all the apps like with Angular routing. So there is no page refresh. All the issues are gone, right? So our customers don't have to wait for seconds on every page switch, right? So it gave good good user experience to our end users. And then what you do, so as part of NX, of course, you run multiple tasks, which is like build. So build is where actually the application start, right? I mean, you can start building, and then you write unit test, and finally you write end-to-end test and say, hey, my application is ready to go to production. So NX can help you with providing some solution for all this, running these different tasks. So to start with module federation, this is how you can start with Angular. You can just change NX Angular to NX React, and it's the same command. So you can say, hey, this is my host application, which is named shell, and then I can define different applications like home, about, blogs. In our case, these are different apps. So this can be like different 40 apps, and you can add more in future. So what you do is shell is something which is responsible for loading all these apps. That's what we do in our case. So if you remember the first slide where I had my app, the navbar is our shell because it just needs to load the navbar, and that's it. All the applications are actually loaded by remotes. So those become remotes. Now, once we started moving into this monorepo, we started now going into different issues, which was shipping features. Now we are shipping faster because, of course, we have a single monorepo, and everyone can just start writing their code and ship within few hours. We don't have to wait for weekly releases. And the problem was issues like bugs. Now we are shipping fast, right? So we are shipping fast bugs, which is true, right? So then we decided, okay, let's build a feature flag solution. But why did we decide to build our own? I mean, I'll talk about that. But why we needed it in the first place? So of course, we needed to ship feature frequently, and then we wanted to have some way to control what we are shipping. What in case something goes wrong? Like, yeah, which happens, right? I mean, we don't want to roll back the entire release because remember, we are shipping 40 apps. If one app has issues, we don't want to roll back 39 apps, which is waste of time for everyone, right? I mean, the other 39 teams did a great job. Just because there was one feature which was failing, we have to roll back now 39 apps. So I have seen this meme a lot, and to be frank, this is not fine. I mean, we say this is fine, but this is not fine. I mean, we should not be doing this. I mean, where there is a fire everywhere, and we are doing this every day. So this is how it feels like to actually ship a code without feature flag. We expect, oh, hey, my front end, back end, it will go really fine together, and we'll be more than happy, and we can go home on Friday and enjoy our weekend, which is not reality, right? How many of you enjoy that? I mean, don't raise your hand, I know the answer. So but in reality, this is how it looks like. As soon as you do merge, everything falls apart. So, and then you have to waste your Saturday, Sundays, or weekends fixing something which you even don't know, like what you're supposed to do here. So with feature flag, this is what we built. So we have the ability, so we can ship a feature based on a particular user. We have multiple clusters and multiple environments, so we can also ship a feature for only one cluster or only one environment. We can also specify how many % of users or customer we want to ship this feature to. Even we can specify specific build. So let's say we want to, for one particular customer, we want to do a POC. We really don't want to ship that code, but we just want to do a POC with that customer. So what we can do is we can specify a build, which is a build artifact, and we can enable, okay, this customer gets this built, and they can do their POC. And we are not merging that code into main unless the POC is finalized. And we can also do combination of all, which gave us a lot of flexibility. And most important, now we can isolate bugs. So we, just in case something goes wrong, we know what went wrong. And we have ability to roll back feature flags. So of course, something goes wrong, we just disable the feature flag, and everyone is happy. No one is working on Saturday, Sundays, or weekends, or even Friday. And now we are able to ship features with more confidence because we know everything is behind a feature flag. So we can do that. And before you start asking me what feature flag solution we have, and start throwing me the money, but please hold on, because we built our own. So we decided, okay, the existing solutions are not for us, and we want to build our own, but how? So as I said, NX has something called plugin-based system, so I can create a new NX plugin. This is just a command. You can just say NX add and then enable the NX plugin for your application, and then start creating new NX plugins. And within plugins, you can have whatever you want to, like bring your own framework, you want to bring something which is not part of your ecosystem. For example, for a feature flag solution, we ended up using like all the YAML-based file modification and file reading and everything. So we built it as part of our NX plugin so developers can use it. The most important part, in case you decide to build your own feature flag solution, is, of course, developer experience. If it's not a good developer experience, your users will never use it, which is your developers, right? And if they don't use it, then you are still working on weekend. So we gave them ability to enable disable flags, so they can do it without like us getting involved. So if something goes wrong and they want to roll back, they can just do it on their own. We also gave them a nice dashboard using Datadog, and we also built our own on top of our file-based system. So they can see like which feature flags are active, which feature flags are like rolled to 20% of the customers or 50% of the customers. They can see all this data easily. And then we added weekly alert because, look, one thing which you should be careful is feature flags are not solution which should exist forever. Feature flags are feature flags, right? And they need to be removed at some point of time. So we started doing weekly alerts once they go to GA. GA is general availability. It means it's available for everyone now, and we can remove the feature flag conditions which we have. So it means, yeah, so my developers should know that, okay, this is GA, and now it's safe to actually remove this code and even remove this flag. So this is fine, because of course, if I know that the fire is at one place, I can always take my extinguisher and then take care of that fire, right? So this is fine. This is where we ended up with our feature flag solution. And I think this is what we should be trying to do as a senior engineer in our team. Try to make everyone happy, try to make everyone's life easy. Now, the other problem which we had was proof of concept. Before coming into monorepo, we had, like, of course, used to take months just to build a POC, because we have to build entire infrastructure. We have to actually go and deploy it somewhere on production so we can start using it. So what we did is, of course, with NX monorepo, you can just start adding a new remote. So this is how you can do it for Angular. As I said, just remove it like Angular and say React, and it's almost same command. So we can start adding new app just with a single command. And then, but the question is, like, what about customization? What in case I need some customization for my workspace? Let's say if you create a React project, an Angular project, you want that there should be some files which I need to include because everyone likes a different setup. You can still go ahead and do that. So NX provides something called as generators. With generators, you can reuse the existing functionality which is provided by any generators. For example, for creating an Angular project or React project. So this is what we do. So we call like existing Angular project. This is an example from our own code base, where what we do is whenever someone creates a new library or new Angular project, we also add the support for component test, because we want everyone to write tests, and we are really serious about it. So we said, okay, once you create a project, we will also add everything, all the configuration related to generating a component test for you. And so my developers don't have to think about like what solution we should use, because this is already something which we have finalized. We went through multiple RFCs, internal RFCs, like what we want to do, what solution we want to take ahead. And it saves a lot of time, right? I mean, we don't have to discuss about new solution every time. And you can also customize files. So you can also add a file while creating a new workspace. So there is a generate files function which you can which you can use. And you can say, okay, this is a file where I want to pass, let's say, name. And you create this file called index.html with some template. Like this is an EJS syntax. So just Google for EJS syntax and you will find it out. And this line, the above files will be created, and then this name will be replaced with whatever parameter you pass. So this is generators. Now, when it comes to maintaining large code base, of course, now we are here, right? So we cannot back out. So we now supporting monorepo with 2 million lines of code, and then we have 40 plus apps, 200 projects. We need a dedicated team, and that's what we do. So my team is responsible for maintaining this entire code base. So we are 3 people and maintaining or helping almost close to 400 developers who are contributing to it. So let's see what we do. So when you are maintaining a large code base, you have to always think about refactoring your code, because there will be always an instance where someone does something else which we don't want to. So you have to be really careful while refactoring your code in case you are deprecating something. You have to be involved in all those deprecations. Of course, migrating code is a big part of team which is responsible for maintaining your monorepo. So my team is also helping with all the migrations, for example, Angular migration, NX migration, or if you want to upgrade Cypress or maybe Playwright. And then we also make sure that there are good linters or good linting rules and tools which are available for everyone within the monorepo. So as part of like maintaining your code base, you should always look out for all these linters and tools which are available in the market. Because this is not one-time thing. Whatever I have written so far, it's not a one-time thing, which you have to revisit every 3 months or 6 months based on your availability, right? And then helping your team members. Of course, this is very important because now you are responsible for everything, right? You have to make sure that whatever code goes in is of better quality. And the next important thing is documentation. If you don't have enough documentation, then your developers will always come back to you, so asking for some questions. And ability to upgrade framework version for everyone. This is really important, right? For now we have 40 apps, and we want to make sure that everyone gets to use new features. Who likes to? Because you see, especially in Angular world, right? I mean, in last few releases, the Angular has totally changed. Now, if you see a code which was written in Angular 14 and Angular 18, you will find like, hey, this is 2 different code bases, but same framework. So, of course, you need to support on all this. And this is where NX Graph can really help to figure out like how your application is structured. For example, this is what you can view if you run NX Graph. It gives you graph of how your applications are connected, how your libraries are connected, and you can easily figure out, okay, if a new app is doing something wrong. If let's say blogs, here you can say home and UI are connected, but let's say blogs which is not supposed to access UI, start using it, then you can just go ahead and say, hey, this is wrong. And then you can go back to your team and ask them to restructure their code. But what we did to actually help our developers. So we actually deploy our documents in a central place. We use Backstage for this. So we have a Backstage where developers can go ahead and refer all the documentation. We use a Slack channel, dedicated Slack channel, to communicate anything. For example, if we are doing some deprecations, or we are doing some refactoring, or let's say if you want to build something new. Because if you are responsible for helping 200 developers, we have to also make sure that you involve more developers. You have to teach, right? So you have to also share the initiatives which you are planning. So this is what we do on Slack. And then we have dedicated Slack channel for developers for asking questions. Let's say if they have anything related to Angular, if they have anything related to Cypress, or maybe Playwright, we have dedicated Slack channel so developers can ask questions. And we also do this workshops internally because there are 400 developers and some people will be always needing some help. And based on the questions we get, like different kind of questions we get, we try to actually organize workshops so developers are aware of whatever we are doing. Now, next important thing for us is tools. So we always like to introduce new tools. For example, last tool we introduced was Playwright. So we wanted to actually have end-to-end test, and we keep adding this new tools in our code base. So this is what we do. with the help of NX. So we all know that it's in today's world, like you see, like every other week there is a new tool. But is it like worth introducing that tool to your code base? Maybe, may not be, because it's time consuming, right? You have to configure everything, and then sometimes it's easy to configure a new tool, but it becomes a time consuming to maintain it. For example, what in case you just added that tool and that tool becomes deprecated in next 2 months? You have to give yourself enough time to make sure that tool becomes stable and then it's usable in your code base. So NX makes that easy for you. For example, they have out-of-box support for end-to-end framework, right? So they have out-of-box support for Cypress, the Playwright, so you just have to do NX add and all the configurations are added for you. Same with unit test, so they have Jest support, VTest support, and in case there is a new tool or new testing framework available in future, you don't have to think a lot about like how to configure. You can just use NX to do it for you. So it saves a lot of time, and we are sure that these tools will actually at least be there for a few years because NX invested in it, right? So NX already made their mind, and then they went through a thought process that we really want to support this tool. So you don't have to like go and create a design doc to discuss about do we need this tool or not, because someone already did it who knows the best, right? So NX already does a lot of consulting with other companies, bigger companies, and they know the market. And you can also make sure that your monorepo and tooling is updated by using this command, nx migrate latest. So you have to just run single command, and if you have React code base or Vue code base, your code base is upgraded to the latest version. And you can specify, let's say, generally it is not recommended to jump multiple versions, right? I'm not supposed to go from Angular 14 to 18 directly. So you can also specify that I want to migrate between 14 to 15. So this is incremental migration you can do. Same with Cypress or Playwright. You can specify that I want to move from Cypress 11 to 12 and 12 to 13. So everything is available using NX. I'll show you a small demo. I have still 30 minutes? No, it's 3 minutes. Okay. So you can actually just run, let's say, for seeing a graph. So you can say npm run nx graph, and it will show you a nice view where you can see the entire. So let me just zoom in and show all projects, and you can see this. So at any point of time in your code base, you can just go ahead and run this command to see the graph. And then you can decide, okay, and you can hover above this to see the dependency, because this is very important. As I said, NX keeps the graph, right? NX keeps the cache, sorry, not the graph, but keeps the cache, like what it needs to build. And based on this graph, it can decide like what it needs to build again and again, or what you have changed. It also helps it to identify like what part of code you have changed. And for adding new code or new applications, there is a generate UI available. So I can say, hey, I need to add a new remote application. So I can say, okay, just go ahead and add NX Angular and a new remote application. A new application is ready for me. I can just go ahead and deploy anywhere. I can run it independently, and that's it. I can go ahead and run build any of the applications. So I can say, hey, just go ahead and build the UI, and I want to run build. So it will run the build for this particular library. That's it. So it's not like I have to build everything again and again. And you can see the cache is coming into picture here. So it says it took actually 3 seconds, but what in case I run it again? So let's say build UI, and I run it again. Now it's 84 milliseconds. From 1 second to 84 milliseconds, because NX knows that nothing has changed, so I can replay it from the cache. So these are some examples which you get out of the box. But yeah, let's move on. So I'll take a few more minutes if you don't mind, but this is the last part. So CI/CD, which is very important, right? Most of us are not just front-end developers anymore. With the GitHub Actions, everyone became a DevOps developer somehow, right? Because it's easy. And as part of CI/CD, you do multiple tasks, right? You run your build, you run your linters, you run your unit test, end-to-end test. But there is some problem. Like every other time, there will be one developer in your team who will come back and ask you this question. Can we have faster build and test? And they will do it every week to make sure that you get annoyed on purpose, right? So let's see how NX and GitHub Actions actually can solve this problem for us. So, and how we use it. So GitHub Actions plus NX, I'd call it as a superpower. So if you have access to GitHub Actions, try to use large runners on GitHub actions because, of course, you can. You can just plug in your own machine with bigger CPU and bigger RAM, and then you can start using it. I would recommend using merge queue because in our case, we get 100 PRs per day. And sometimes it goes up to 700 PRs per week. And it's impossible. It's almost impossible to build a code base with 2 million lines of code and which has end-to-end test, which has like unit test. So we, of course, run affected test. So what we do is we cache build for faster build and test. So let's see how we do this. The first, I will talk about merge queue and user journey test. Look, user journey tests are excellent way to make sure that your application has no bugs. But there is a problem. It's very expensive, right? Because if you're running end-to-end test, you know you have your backend as well. You have a real backend available. And it takes time to make sure like you get response faster. So it's not a solution for like running your end-to-end test on every PR. For smaller apps, it's absolutely fine. And while merging your PR, I mean, this is another issue with end-to-end test because let's say if you keep merging and running end-to-end test with every PR, you can have this problem, like your main branch is out of sync because there are 100 PRs. It means there is a time that there might be 10 different PRs in parallel, and they don't have the latest code. So this is where merge queue really can help. So I created some diagrams because I had a lot of time. So let's see how we do it with merge queue. So let's say we have 4 PRs, and this is your CI pipeline. And now your merge queue starts, right? So first thing what will happen is, of course, those PRs will be built. All the unit tests will be run. In case something goes wrong, let's say PR4 fails, it's out of the queue. And these 3 PRs are sent to merge queue. You can specify like how many PRs you want to move to merge queue and build together. We do 10. We do 10 because that's our frequency. That's how many PRs we realize that we get in parallel. But you can decide. Let's say if you want to do 2, 3, and then let's say this 3 PRs gets added to queue. And this is how merge queue works. So for PR1, there will be a merge queue PR1 branch, which will be created from the main. And then all the changes which are from PR1 will be added to this new branch which was created. For PR2, there will be a new branch created from the PR1 branch, which was already created. And then we merge PR2 changes. We don't. Of course, GitHub does it for you. And then PR2 changes are merged to this branch. Same for PR3. So it's all the code. There is a new branch which is created, PR1, PR2, PR3. And then PR3 changes are merged to this branch. Because we said, like, right now we have 3 in parallel. And then after all this, the new branch which was created, PR1, PR2, PR3, is sent to your pipeline. And then you can run your user journey test on top of all 3 PRs. If something fails, we go back and take the another branch. For example, PR1, PR2, PR3 fails, we will go to PR1 and PR2 branch and make sure that those 2 can be built together. So it takes less time because we also run a only affected user journey test. So we don't run like the entire journey test for us. And even if we do like run all the affected, just in case we change something which affects all the repository, we are making sure that we are just doing it once. For 10 PRs, we are just running our user journey test once, which saves a lot of time. So rather than like running 100 times a day, we are just doing it 10 times a day, saving a lot of money and saving us a lot of time. So how do we run affected test? We just saw the graph, right? With the graph, we can figure out like what is changed. And this is what we do. So let's say if you have lib1, lib2, and it has dependency on multiple apps. This is our change. So what we do is, let's say we added a function which is in lib1 and which is used in app1 and app3. So this is what should happen in my PR. So we run something called nx-affected, and we can specify, OK, what are the targets which we want to do? Like I want to run build, I want to run lint, I want to run test, and that's it. What we do is, after every PR is merged, we push this into build cache. So for caching, we are using our own solution. We are using S3 bucket. So we push all the cache into S3 bucket, and then we retrieve it back. So everyone gets the latest cache. And if you want the home-baked solution, NX has something called NX Cloud. Paid solution, buy NX, and you can also use it so you don't have to do this. This is out of the picture, then you don't have to add any extra process. This is just an example from our live code base. This is our design system. So you see it takes 48 seconds to build in case we make some changes. But if I haven't made any changes, it's 72 seconds. Not 72 seconds, sorry. So it's a millisecond, right? So even not a second. So this is what you get using NX. Okay, so I'm going over time. So release strategy, of course, now at the end of time, after doing everything, we have to release, right? And this is where it becomes we have to be really careful that what we release and how we release. So this is what we do. So, okay, we don't do this. Okay, so we don't deploy on Friday. And it's not fun, right, deploying on Friday. So we have to make sure, like, okay, we are not doing any deployments after, let's say, Thursday. So if we reach like Thursday end of the day, we say, okay, no release for this week. But how we do this? So every Monday morning, we create a release branch. And then every teams who has some automated test or manual test, they execute all the tests and they say, hey, we have approved the release, you can go ahead and deploy. So we deploy our release by Tuesday or Wednesday, worst case Thursday morning. And everything was fine. We say, okay, we are good to go home and enjoy our weekend. If something goes wrong, we don't fix it. We do a rollback. Either this can be a feature flag or this can be an entire release. We roll back and go home, enjoy our weekend. Okay, the important thing is we enjoy our weekend. Okay, so in case something fails, we say, okay, no release for this week. We again enjoy our weekend. So priority is enjoying our weekend. That's why we have this process. And we decide this when we write our design doc. If we have any feature, we know that this is going to impact our entire release. We decide like what will be our release strategy when we write design doc. So we are not into situation like CrowdStrike, right? So we are not screwing up our millions of users just because we never thought about our release process. This is where we want to be. Of course, everyone has a dream, right? This is our dream. So what we want to do is just create a new branch. At the end of the day, if CI/CD is fine, we deploy it to production. If something goes wrong, we just do it next day. So this is our end goal. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to me for 35 minutes.